Hello everybody, it's Dan Baird from AdWords Nerds here, and I want to do training this week all about click-through rate. I'm going to call it Get More Clicks, How to Raise Your Click-Through Rate the Easy Way. And this is going to cover just this general concept of raising click-through rate on both AdWords and Facebook. So if you're running any kind of advertising, this is going to help you both as a general sense, and this is also going to kind of point you in more directions if you want to dig deeper into this topic. So let's just start with what is click-through rate. If you're not super familiar with pay-per-click marketing or online advertising, you may not have heard this term. Click-through rates basically just means the percentage of people who, whoops, this says see the ad. This actually should be, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to fix this live so you can see how amazingly professional I am. This should say the percentage of people who click the ad after seeing it. So that is click-through rate. The percentage of people that click the ad after seeing it. If 100 people see your ad and 10 people click on it, you have a 10% click-through rate. All right. Now, this is typically a factor, how high your click-through rate is, of your ad quality and your targeting. Generally, if you're targeting the right audience, you get a higher percentage of clicks. If you have a really great ad that's really enticing and really compelling, you're going to get a higher percentage of clicks. And that's really good because you are getting more of the market over onto your website where they can convert and become a lead. Now, one of the things that people often forget is that click-through rate, although it is primarily a factor of your ad quality and your ad targeting. Again, like how good your ad is, how good your audience is. That's not the only factor. In fact, click-through rate is highly affected by the position or placement of the ad. I'm going to show you an example. This is, sorry, it's a little blurry, but this is like a, example of Facebook, right? And in Facebook, you've got multiple ad placements. You've got the news feed here. It's kind of showing up in the middle of Facebook. And you've got the right-hand side here, ads over here. Now, which of these do you think is generally going to have a higher click-through rate, going to get a higher percentage of people that see it, that click it? It's the news feed because it's bigger, it's more in your face, and something is right down the middle versus over on the right. So where your ad is placed has a huge effect on how big a percentage of people are going to click on it, not just how good the ad is, right? Likewise, in AdWords, this is a quick example. I Googled sell my house fast, right? These 4 top results are ads. And generally in AdWords, right, the top result is going to get the most click-through rate. The second ad is going to get the second highest click-through rate, and the third is going to get lower, and the fourth is going to get lower, all the way down to the bottom of the page where click-through rate tends to drop off to 0, right? So where your ad is a big factor, along with how good the ad is and how well you've targeted the ad. All right. Now, how do we improve click-through rate? Because as click-through rate goes up, right, we're going to get more clicks. We're generally going to get more leads. We're going to make more money. So how do we improve the click-through rate of their ads? Now, the fastest way to do this, the quickest distance from where you are now to improving your click-through rate is to improve your position. All right. The fastest way to improve the position, right? If you're in AdWords and you're position 2, the fastest way to get a higher click-through rate is to bump yourself up to position 1. If you're on Facebook and you're over on the right-hand side, the fastest way is to bump yourself up over into the news feed. All right. Now, in general, with pay-per-click channels, right, the better the position, the more it's going to cost. Right? So in AdWords, the top position is generally the most expensive one. In fact, it is always the most expensive one. And likewise on Facebook, the more central placements like the newsfeed tend to be more expensive than the right-hand side placements. So the question you are asking yourself, if you are following this strategy and you're saying, hey, I want more clicks, I'm going to bump up my position, the question you always have to ask is, was the improvement worth the cost? Okay, I put in here CPC, which stands for cost per click. Was the improvement rate that I got worth the increased price I am paying for that improvement, right? You might decide that like, hey, I bumped my ad in AdWords up from position 2 to position 1. My cost per click went from $10 to $20, so it doubled. But I only got a 1% click-through rate improvement, which means I'm only getting 1 extra lead a month, but I'm making double now. Is that worth it? Well, for most people, it's not going to be worth it, right? So I want you to think about this as in a context of when you pay more for a higher position, you have to weigh that against the improvement in click-through rate. And if you don't see a substantial improvement in click-through rate, you're actually probably going to make more money at a, theoretically worse position. So position can be a little complicated, but basically just think about the better the position, the better the click-through rate, but the more you're generally going to have to pay. So always be careful to track that and think about, hey, I paid more. Was the benefit I got worth it? All right. Now, there's a slower way, and going to be significantly less expensive, right? Which is adapting your creative or changing your creative. In the ad world, when we say creative, we basically just mean like the ad itself rather than the position or how much you paid for it. We're talking about the words, we're talking about the images, we're talking about the offer. That's the creative, right? Now, in general, a better creative, a better ad is going to be more enticing to your target market, and it's going to get more clicks, right? So when I say better, I just mean the people you are targeting are more likely to click on it, more likely to engage with it, right? It doesn't matter if it's fancy or ugly. Whichever one gets more people to interact with it and become leads, that's the better creative. So better creatives, generally more enticing than the target market, and that's going to get you higher click-through rate and more clicks. Now, improving the creative, improving your ads, tends to actually lower your costs. If you go back to position, your position tends to raise your costs. As you raise your position, your costs go up. You try to bid for the top position, your cost per click goes up. You move from the right-hand side over to the news feed, your cost goes up. When you improve the creative, when you make your ad better, your cost actually tends to go down. That's because both Facebook and AdWords and pretty much all pay-per-click channels at this point are going to have some system for rewarding you when you create better ads. Because all these advertising channels, right, they need people to keep coming back and clicking on ads to survive. That's how they make all their money, right? And so they want to reward advertisers for creating increasingly better ads, increasingly more compelling ads, ads that make the consumer happier, right? So the way they reward you for creating a better ad is by lowering your cost. And so you can get a higher click-through rate by improving your position and raising your costs, and that's the fast way to do it. Or you can improve your click-through rate by improving your creative and lowering your costs, but it's a much slower process. And there's no right or wrong. You really should do both of these, right? But I want you to understand the difference between these two major areas of click-through rate improvement because, hey, if you've got a lower budget, you really want to focus on the creative. And if you've got a higher budget and less time, you probably want to focus on position. Does that make sense? All right. So let's talk about creatives. This is probably the area where most of you guys are going to spend most of your time. So let's talk about AdWords. Okay, there's really a fairly limited number of ways of improving your creative in AdWords, assuming that you are doing search ads. Google Display Network ads, which is part of AdWords, are image ads, more similar to Facebook. I'm not going to be talking about those here. That's sort of like a whole different deal. And search ads are really the majority of ads for real estate investors right now. So I'm going to break down my basic process for improving creatives inside AdWords search ads. First one is to run one keyword per ad group. Sometimes this is called a SKAG, a single keyword ad group, which is a truly unfortunate acronym or whatever you want to call it. You run one keyword in an ad group, and what that does is allow you to write very finely targeted ads for that specific keyword. That alone is often going to do a lot to improve your click-through rate because you're essentially focusing the audience and you can really write an ad for that audience. Now, what we'll typically tell people is that for every ad group, so remember you've got one keyword in an ad group, you typically want to run 5 ads simultaneously. We used to do 3. Recently, Google kind of changed the way that they process how they serve ads and how they process quality score. And 5 ads in general have been serving us better, so we've kind of bumped this up. 5 ads per ad group. And generally want these ads to be pretty different from each other. You don't want to do like sell my house fast and then sell my house quick. You really want to do different types of ads, different approaches, different angles, different targets, right? Now, when you have these ads in here, you want to rotate them indefinitely. There's a lot of settings inside Google, and in fact, they're kind of in the process of changing these. So I put if possible, because who knows? By the time you see this video, who knows what they're going to do? But they're going to offer you some ways that let Google optimize for you. And they're going to offer you a way that just says, we won't do that, you have to do all the work. I would highly recommend that you choose the option where you do the work, because we want to get to a point of statistical significance. This is basically saying, hey, I need enough people to have seen these ads and enough people to have clicked them in order to have a big enough difference statistically to know that one ad is actually better than the other. Because typically what will happen is you won't have a ton of traffic and you've got a lot of ads. So they're going to take a while to build up views, build up impressions, build up clicks. And you're going to see one that outperforms the others. And you're going to be like, that's the winner. And you're going to call it too early. And a lot of times what that leads to is just underperformance in general. We really have to make sure we let these ads run. We let them season, right? It's like a cast iron pan where you got to season it over time. Right, so we want to make sure we let these ads run. You can Google statistical significance calculator and you can enter your data. It will tell you the degree to which it is certain that one ad is the winner or not, right? So just Google statistical significance calculator. There's a bunch of them. They're all fine. Typically, I'm looking for at least 90% statistical significance before I make a call. Another really good approach to this is to use the Swiss Army knife. Swiss Army knife was a thing made up by Perry Marshall, who's like a guy who's done a lot of AdWords training, sort of like an old school sort of marketing dude. But he has this really great process where he creates ads by combining different elements, right? So it's like, let's say you start over here with your customer's best friend, and then you, the advertiser, right? And then a thing that your customer loves. So you got to tie all these things into an ad, right? Or your customer's worst enemy and your customer's best friend and you, the advertiser, right? So like this might be an example of, let's say the customer's worst enemy of a real estate investor is a realtor, right? And your customer's best friend is a motivated seller. Oh no, that would be your customer. So your customer's best friend is like another investor they're friends with, and you, the advertiser, is you. So if I'm going to write an ad that combines all these three, I might say like, don't let your best friend use a realtor, right? Send them to an investor instead, or whatever it is, right? Or I might say like your customer's worst enemy, a thing your customer loves, and you, the advertiser. So if the worst enemy is the realtor, a thing your customer loves is selling their house, and you, the advertiser, is you. Right, so I have to tie all these things, right? So I might say like, never sell your house to a realtor. Instead, sell it to an investor, right? So it's just a way of generating a lot of copywriting ideas. I'm actually doing a terrible job of explaining it, but I highly suggest that you just Google Swiss Army knife Perry Marshall. You will find a million things on this. It's really good. He actually has a paid program about this. I don't think you need to do that. I think you can just get some free stuff and get enough out of it. But if you really want to get into the copywriting part of advertising, his paid stuff is quite good. So I definitely suggest that you check it out. And the reason we're looking at the Swiss Army knife is because the creative, the text of the ad is where you're going to get a lot of your oomph in AdWords, right? Like AdWords is text ads for search. And so it's the language that you use, the messaging, the targeting, the offer that you're using. And most investors just basically all run the exact same ad. Sell your house fast in my town. Right? I make a fair cash, 100% fair cash offer in 25 hours, blah, 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 blah. Right? Everybody's ad is very, very similar. So if you can experiment and do something different and get something that's really creative, you have the opportunity of really standing out and getting a really high click-through rate that's going to drive your costs down. Everybody's going to be happy. So that's improving your creative in AdWords. Let's talk about Facebook. Facebook gets a little bit more complicated, right? Because Facebook has more ad formats than AdWords does. It's also got more going on in the ads that it offers because it offers a whole bunch of different, image ads and all this stuff. So improving your Facebook creative is really about A/B testing, just testing different variations. And there's a couple different major ones that I would test in any given Facebook campaign. Your audience targeting is usually where you start. If you're having trouble getting a good click-through rate, it could be that your audience is not on point. If the audience is not well targeted to what you're offering, no matter how good the ad is, you're not going to get the relevancy that you want. You're not going to get the performance that you want. So you want to make sure you're testing different audiences, whether it's different demographics or different zip codes or different interests or different lists, right? You are targeting your direct mail lists on Facebook, right? So whatever you're doing, test different ones against each other and see how they perform. Once you're past audience though, and you're really into the creative part, image versus video is a big one. And so this doesn't just mean test an image, test a video. Test lots of different images. Test lots of different videos. You really are going to find that performance per image or per video is widely different. And so you might run an image of, a rundown house and then an image of, a car barreling into a house or whatever, and find that the car barreling into the house has twice the click-through rate of the rundown house. And I made that up, so don't do that. I mean, test it, but I'm not saying that's going to work. But that's something you can test, right? And likewise, videos, investors tend to make a video ad. They make one ad and then they run it. You really need to be testing multiple videos in order to figure out which is going to work for you. You might test an animated video versus one where you are in front of a camera. You might test a PowerPoint one. You might test one with music or no music. You might test a video testimonial. Whatever you're testing, come up with a bunch of ideas and test them. Because no matter how much you think you know what's going to work, you really don't. I am proven wrong tons of times a day. I am constantly humbled by the data that we bring in, right? So it's just one of these things that you have to test it and figure it out. Want to test different types of copy? You want to test different offers, right? So you want to test the different kinds of text you put into your ad. You want to test different offers. So one of the things I saw, there's a really prominent kind of investor company. They say we'll give you an offer in 7 minutes. 7 minutes, right? There's a reason they chose that number. I can almost guarantee they tested different offers against that number and found that worked, right? Is that going to work for you? I don't know, right? There's an investor out in California I saw where his offer is, I'll either sell your house, meaning he would list it, or I'll buy it. So he would say he would get you your asking price on the open market, or he would buy your house. Really compelling offer. Right? So we buy houses, sell your house fast. That's the offer that everybody uses. How can you put a tweak on it? How can you put your own flavor to it? How can you change it up? Make it more specific, right? Make it more targeted. Social proof is a big one. There's lots of ways in a Facebook ad you can show social proof. I'll show you that in a second. And then finally, the call to action, the thing you're actually telling them to do. Let me show you on an actual Facebook ad here. There's various ways you can do this, right? So social information, this is the page, right? But you also have down here, look, see how this ad is 88 likes, 5 comments, 13 shares? The more social activity you can generate on an ad or a post, the higher the click-through rate is generally going to be, right? So try to write an ad that's going to get comments and likes and shares, because that's going to help other people click on that ad. It's going to help people get excited about it. This button here where it says learn more, that's the call to action, right? And so you can do, buy now, sign up now, whatever. They're going to give you a limited selection of things. You can't choose whatever you want, but test different ones. Or test a button one that doesn't have a button at all, right? Here's the image that's showing up. This is a newsfeed ad, so test a whole bunch of different images, right? Text here where you got copy. Some people do long text, paragraphs and paragraphs of text here. Some people do a CTA down here. There's a bunch of stuff to test. And if you're not testing every element of that, you're really going to find that you are going to underperform over time, right? So if you think about the difference between testing and not testing, we are really talking about a difference over time, a massive performance differential that is going to really change how everything works. Because remember, as your click-through rate goes up, your costs go down. So if you're not doing this, you are overspending. You are paying market prices when you should be getting way below market prices over time. Now, again, remember I said creative adaptation and testing, this is the slow way to do it. So it's going to take time, it's going to take effort, but the ROI on that effort is massive. All right. So guys, I hope that was useful. If you like this training, I do free trainings like this every single week. plus lots of other awesome investors swapping strategies and hanging out with no spam in the REI Marketing Nerds Facebook group. You can go there at adwordsnerds.com/group. That'll just forward you straight to the Facebook group, or go on Facebook and type in REI Marketing Nerds. You'll find us there. It's free to join. It'll be free forever. It's a really awesome place to hang out. And this training and a bunch of other trainings I've been doing, including trainings on YouTube for investors, training on finding scammy SEO companies. We do weekly Q&A hangouts. We do a bunch of stuff on mindset and decision making. It's just a really fun place to hang out. So if you're not a member of the group, come and join up. If you are a member of the group, leave a comment, leave a like. Let me know if this was useful. And I will talk to you guys soon. Have an awesome day. Bye-bye.